Hi, I'm Larry Puckett, the DCC guy. Recently, I talked about starting a new series of videos on building a small modular switching layout. Now in this case, I'm talking about something that's going to be about 2 feet wide by about 8 feet long. And right here is the first module that I've already built, and I'm going to show you today how to build the second one. And in future videos, we'll go ahead and progress through adding legs and laying track and installing turnouts and tortoise switch machines and a lot of other things that I haven't been able to show you hands-on here on the Piedmont Southern. So this is going to be a small switching layout. These have become very popular lately in the United States. They've been popular in the UK for a number of years, and they're great for folks who have limited space, limited time to commit to building a full-size model railroad like the Piedmont Southern. So, one thing that you can do with one of these is you can gain the skills and try out a lot of different techniques on a limited scale without committing a lot of space and money and other resources, time in particular, to building a very large layout. So what I want to do today, though, is walk you through how I went about building the basic baseboard that is the base for the model railroad. And then in subsequent videos, I will show you how we will have 2 of these. I'll show you how you can join these together and then go from there to build the entire model railroad. So this is going to be a weekly type of thing where just about every week, about every Friday, I plan to have a new updated video that will show you a new skill and exactly how I do it here on the Piedmont Southern. And then we'll go from there and keep adding more and more until maybe a year from now, hopefully, this project will be completed. So, if you want, go ahead, get the supplies, and tackle the job yourself. Build your own model railroad. So what I want to do, though, is today I'm just going to build this, a companion module like this baseboard right here, and we'll go ahead and start that in just a minute. Now I want to point out that in addition to this video, I posted a second one today, and it's very short. It's only about 5 minutes long, whereas I think this one is over 30 minutes. But the shorter one is just a short video on how I went about cutting out all of this lumber. And it's not a big job, and I didn't include it as part of this video because it's not something that needs to be there. You can probably have your lumberyard cut this for you because there's not that much to be done. And even if they charge you a small cutting fee, it's not going to break the bank, particularly if you don't already have the tools that are necessary to do the cutting. So that's one thing that I wanted to direct you to take a look at if you want. Also, I wanted to point out that normally I don't use a lapel mic. I dug out an old lapel mic that I had to use in this video, and the sound quality is a little different than what I get from my shotgun mic here that I'm using right now and that I typically use in my videos. So you'll notice a little difference in the sound quality, and hopefully I'm going to try to find a combination microphone and lapel mic that will do the job for me and give the same type of quality as I get from this shotgun mic. But it's a bit of a challenge so far to find just the right one that's not going to break the bank at the same time. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the video and putting one of these baseboards together. Okay, so first off, let's talk about the lumber. Now this is simple 1x4, and I bought 8-foot sections, cut them in half, and that gave me 2 4-foot long sides. Now, as I said, these are 1x4, which means that they come out at 3/4 of an inch thick and 3.5 inches wide. That's just the way dimensional lumber is produced these days. And this stuff here came all the way from Finland, so it's a very international project here. Okay, so these will be the 2 sides for the box, and then I cut these 3 pieces here, and they're each 22.5 inches. And when you add up the thickness of the lumber, The two 3/4 inch pieces here gives you 1.5 inches, and 22.5 gives me 24 inches. So this module, the baseboard, is going to be 2 feet wide, 24 inches wide, and 4 feet long. And we're going to have 2 of those that will be mated, and that'll give me an 8-foot long layout to work with. And eventually, I'll tell you this now, eventually I plan to add at each end a staging yard of some kind. It might be a fiddle yard with a single track extension long enough for a train to move out onto. It might be individual lift out cassettes where I can drop in a whole train and drive it on and then the like. But right now I'm kind of leaning towards using a traversing yard with about 6 tracks on it to allow me to set up 6 trains in advance at each end. And that way I can run trains in and off of the layout as the sequence operation progresses. Okay, so these will be the end. There will be one here in the middle and then one at the other far end. So we'll have fairly good support at each end. Now, and I'll talk about this in more detail later. I've already pre-drilled holes in the end here. I put a hole here in the center for the DCC power bus. I've got one over here for a DC power bus and another one over here for the throttle bus. A couple of holes here and here for bolts to hold the 2 sections together. And then eventually we'll get around to adding alignment dowels so that the 2 modules will always mate up perfectly. So we'll go over that in a little while. Okay, the other component that I'm using, I cut these 2x2 blocks, and I just am using those as temporary corner braces on the ends of each module. And the reason for that being temporary is eventually we'll be using legs. And here on the Piedmont Southern, the way I build these modules, I build my entire layout using this same system. So mine are basically 2 foot by 8 feet long, and then they have 2x2 legs. So for now, in order to make it easier to work with the module while we're tipping it up and doing all kinds of installations, I decided just to use these corner braces, these 2x2s, in each corner, one in each corner. And eventually they will be replaced with 2x2 legs like I use here on the rest of the layout. But it's not going to be right away because, you know, they'd kind of get in the way. So that's the wood, and very straightforward, simple, easy to build. Again, 2 1x4s cut to 4 foot long each. 3 1x4s cut to 22.5 inches each. And 4 corner braces. These are about 6 inches each. In addition to the wood, I'm going to be using a number of simple tools to help put this together. So obviously I have my saws that a combination of a power miter saw and a jigsaw for cutting the plywood. And you know, when you get your wood cut, you might actually be able to get your lumber yard or your hardware store where you buy the lumber to actually pre-cut the wood for you, particularly the plywood, because you know you're going to need a 1/2 inch thick piece of plywood, 4 foot by 8 foot or 4x4, and you know have it cut to 2 foot by 4 foot dimensions, because you know we're going to be using 1/2 inch plywood for the tabletop. I went ahead and bought a 4 by 8 foot sheet and cut it down to 2 foot by 4 foot sections. Now, as far as putting this together, for a lot of the work, one thing that is very, very helpful are these quick grip clamps. And they are, I mean, very useful for doing all kinds of things when you're constructing a model railroad. And you'll see how I'm using those as we go through this. Also, something that's very useful but not necessary is a corner clamp. And this guarantees that you get perfect square corners when you put your modules together. And we'll see that in a minute. For drilling the holes in the ends of the boards here, I went ahead and used I think that's a 3/4 inch hole saw. And I've shown you how I used those in the past. Of course, we have a countersinking bit here. And then I'm going to be using these number 6. get you a handful here to look at. These are number 6 by 1 5/8 inch wood screws. And they're a construction screw that you can get at hardware stores now. They're very similar to a drywall screw, and they have a very coarse thread on them, so they really go in fast and bite. Very good for this type of construction. I'll be using 5/16 inch carriage bolts to hold the modules together eventually. I'm using a 5/8 inch, I'm sorry, this is a 5/8 inch bit, drill bit here to drill the holes for the bolts and a couple of other things. And let's see, what else? Of course, trusty rechargeable drill for doing all the drilling. So let's go ahead and take a look at how I put this together. So I'm going to have to get this down and out of the way, and we'll get everything set up to get started. Well, I can just barely see myself in the camera here, so don't worry about looking at me. Watch what I'm going to be doing here, and I will actually probably get out of the scene here in just a second, because I need to bring this in here closer. Okay, I think that's gonna do it. So I'm going to bring these in here. You want to get these nice, tight fitting joint here. So this is where this corner clamp comes in handy. And I'm going to drop it in here and on this side. And what that does, it allows me to get this into perfect alignment and then clamp it so that we get a perfect 90-degree angle here on the corner. Okay, so I've got the corner clamp set on here and tightened down so that we've got a perfect 90-degree angle right here at the corner. And what I want to do now then is drill a couple of holes, countersunk, so that I can put a couple of those wood screws in place. Okay. And now we'll put a couple of screws in. And just like that, the first corner's done. Now, I'm going to have to move over to the other side to get that corner. Okay, I had to get out a piece of plywood and put it under this one because on this side it was starting to fall off the corner, so I needed something to stabilize it with. So at any rate, let's put the clamp back on here, and we'll clamp this sucker down. Okay, that's got that corner squared up. Let's go ahead and drill some more holes. And now we can go ahead and add the additional screws to stabilize this corner. Okay, so now we have one end done, and I just need to flip this around and repeat it at the other end. Now it's important to use a countersinking bit when installing these screws, because on this face here, and I will have some here in a minute, you're going to be joining these two faces together. And so those have to be flat and flush there. And on this side, I will eventually install a hardboard type fascia. So you want these to be countersunk so that it's nice and flush. And also, when you do that countersinking, it helps to prevent splitting out the ends of the boards, which is a distinct problem when you're putting screws in this close to the end. So you really do need to use that countersinking bit. And you can probably pick up these at Lowe's, Home Depot, and similar types of home improvement stores in England and other areas around the world. Anywhere that sells these kind of wood screws. Okay, so we've got those done. While I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and install this centerpiece right here, and it goes right in the middle in order to give you a nice support across the board across the baseboard. And that will, you know, it adds a lot more rigidity and strength, and it will also help prevent any sagging of the plywood over time. Let me point out though that once you install this and these guys, then we'll talk about designing your layout, because you do have to make allowances for where these members like these two and this one here are located, because you don't want to put a turnout or a set of points right over top of a crossbeam like this, because you won't be able to install a tortoise or a pico snap switch or any other kind of mechanical control or electromechanical control for your turnouts. So let me go ahead and get this set up, and then we'll get started on that. Okay, in order to get this right, I want to measure the center point of these. So we got 4 feet, so 24 inches is going to be my center. And that's going to be right here. Put one down here too. This is a great tool to have. It's designed to be used with sheetrock and cutting sheetrock square and the like. I use it for a lot of carpentry jobs because it gives you a very nice long 4-foot ruler, and I've used it all over the layout here, so it's great for measuring things like this out. Okay, so I've put a line here at the halfway mark. I need to make one on the other side. I do like working at this level. It makes it great to be able to use this little roll around stool. Okay, so we've got that marked out, the exact location. And we can square these up too. Okay, there's that side. Let's just make this faster. Okay, and square it up again. Okay. Now we can go ahead and drill out on this side. Okay, everything seems pretty flush. So let me go ahead and get set up, and we'll add the top. Okay, so I flipped the piece of plywood up on here, and as fate would have it, you can see there's a little bit of a bow right here. So this is where these clamps that I showed you are going to come in handy, because I'm going to take one of these clamps right here, or I'm going to take both of them, I think. And we can just slip these on here like this. Make sure everything is squared. Okay. And we can slip these 2 clamps on here, and they're going to pull the plywood down flush while I get ready to go ahead and do the drilling. Now, another thing, I'm going to mark these off real quick because I want one at about 12 inches here, and we're going to want one, come out about 2 inches here from the end. I don't want to go right on the end because I might run into some screws down here later on. And then we'll come out, let's see, we've got 12 inches and we've got 2, so that's 10. We want 5. That would be at 41 inches here, okay? And we'll duplicate that on the other side. Come in about 2, 26, go to 31. And there's center. Now, another thing that I like to do, just to make sure that I don't drill too close to the end or too far away, is go ahead and mark off where that board underneath here is located. And I'm just taking a 1x4, at least I think it is, and we're going to mark those positions. So now I know that if I drill here in the center, I'm going to hit wood. Move over to this side and knock these guys off. Now there's nothing magic about any of these locations. I just like to space them out fairly evenly and consistently. And I'm probably using more screws than I actually need, but you know, they're cheap. And my feeling is always work from the center of a bowed piece of wood out. That way it allows it to adjust naturally as you clamp it down. There. Okay, so that end is done. Now I'm going to start with the center of the long piece here. So, get my ruler again. So we'll start at 24 inches, and we'll do one. We're going to want to do one here towards the end. So I'm going to start at 2, and then we'll go to about 13 inches. Okay. Do the same thing over here. Go with 2, 13, and 24. And once again, I want to mark the location of the 1x4 underneath here. So mark it there, 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 and here. Okay, so now I know exactly where to drill. Let's go ahead and get those done. I managed to find one of the screws, so I'll take a step to the side just a bit and re-drill. Okay, let's flip it and do the other side. There. Let's get set up and measure some more. Let's go ahead and get these drilled out and screwed down. I will run this at faster speed when I do the final edits, so you won't have to sit here and watch me drill every hole. Well, at least you won't watch it in real time. Okay, so that's done. Let's pull this over and we'll do this end. I'm going to go ahead and mark it while I'm here. Okay, let's see, we did what? 2 inches. Let's see what I did down here. So now we can go ahead and drill these out. Now this piece of plywood got cut a bit short, but that's not going to be an issue. It's about 1/8 of an inch, and it will be covered by scenery at the end of the baseboard. We have one more thing to do on the top that I just remembered when I got ready to flip it. And that is we need to run a couple of screws in here. Okay, so let's see where the center is right there. Let me make sure. Yeah, that's about as close as we're going to get there, folks. Okay, and we go with 12 inches here, and one at 18 inches, and one at 6. Okay. Okay, we'll do a little bit more drilling now. Now let's flip it over and we'll put in the small corner braces that will stay in place until we install legs. And once again, we'll use these to hold them in place while we drill. Now, at this point, it's a good idea to mark the locations of where the screws are already in here so that you don't drill directly into a screw. Okay, now that's one. I want to put at least one on this side as well. So we'll run it in right about here in the center. Okay. And we'll go ahead and do the other side here. Okay, so we got that side. Let's do this side. One at least over here. And I know I've got 4 here in the same positions relatively, so we can just go straight. Okay, so those are good and stable in there, and that's going to hold that up good and tight. Now I'm just going to do this at the other end. And that's it. Okay, so we got both of the modules built. They'll be mated together at this end. As I said earlier, I've already pre-drilled all of the holes for the bolts and the wires and all those kind of things to run through here. And we'll talk about more about that when we get to the wiring section. As for what we're going to do next time, well, what I typically do on my layout on the Piedmont Southern, and we'll do this one, is install a piece of this foam insulation that's available here in the United States. I'm not sure whether you have something comparable in England. I think I've seen some folks using some similar products over there. But at any rate, what this does is it serves as a great sound deadener because, you know, it makes a lot of noise on this bare plywood, but the foam helps to deaden the sound quite a bit. Plus, it makes a really good road bed and a great a way for doing scenery, because if you want to dig ditches, you can cut ditches here. If you want to go up, you can always add additional layers of foam to make contours and things of that nature, and then, you know, shape them with a steak knife or something. So it makes a very convenient way to build model railroads. And, you know, I've done this on the entire Piedmont Southern. This basic design that I've just put together, like I said, is exactly what I use for all of the main level of the Piedmont Southern. And every one of them, including the upper decks as well, are comprised 1/2-inch plywood, 1/2-inch foam, giving me a 1-inch thick road bed and scenery underlayment on the top of the layout. So next time we'll go ahead and I will show you how to install alignment dowels from DCC Concepts in here so that these modules will line up each and every time that we put them together. So until next time, have a great weekend, enjoy the video, and then by the following Friday we should be able to add the foam and do the alignment dowels on the ends here and get these things set up so they mate together.